Hey everyone, it is episode 53 of the Green Umbrella Live Lunch. We are live on Facebook, on my LinkedIn, and also on our YouTube channel as well. Assuming that I hit all the right buttons, because normally Jane does that bit. And fortunately for her, unfortunately for us, she's off on holiday this week. So she's having a nice, well-earned break. She left us this email of things we needed to do. And Jane, if you have chosen to tune in, I promise we've been staying on the case. Or everyone else has anyway. I just kind of ignored it. But yeah, I was just saying it's a bit weird, Jane not being here. But it's really positive because we've got a guest today, Chris Lambert from Datasense is joining us to talk through a few things. I was thinking about how best to introduce you because there's a few things we can talk about, based on what you do. So if I say Chris is the guy you go to when stuff needs turning on and off again, that's probably a good starting point. But if you want to sort of introduce yourself properly to people in our audience that won't know who you are and tell us a little bit about what you do, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, that's a pretty good sum up of what I do in the business. I'm one of the directors at Datasense. We're a IT support, cybersecurity and GDPR company. So we make sure your IT systems work effectively, secure, and all your data is secure as well. So my part of the business is predominantly the sales side and also the IT support. So yes, I'm the one who you phone up when you've forgotten to plug your headset in, forgotten to turn the wall socket on because your PC is not starting up, or you've got an error message you don't know and you just need to turn it off and turn it back on.
Awesome. And are there any stories of people that sort of have those kind of IT issues where it's just like literally it is someone forgot to hit the switch on the wall?
Yes, I'm conscious that some people might actually be watching this and it's related to them. I shouldn't really say Paul Green's name too often, but Paul Green. No, I did get a call from a client once. She had been out with her laptop to a site to do a presentation for the day, got back to the office about 3:30, had been working away. At 4 o'clock, her laptop just shut down. And she couldn't get it to restart. So phoned me up. I went from home, which is the kind of eastern side of Northampton, across to Moulton Village to the university. Got all the way there, having already had a 5-minute conversation with her, given a few pointers to check, making sure it was obviously plugged in, switched on. Got there, just about to open the door, and she phoned back, went, I haven't turned the wall socket on. So I said, well, I'm here now. Let me come in for a cup of tea to make this drive worthwhile.
See, I laugh, but I feel like that is something that I possibly could do, because we were talking before this live lunch, weren't we? And the amount of times that I've called Mark when things haven't been working, and then he said to me, have you switched it on and off again? And I haven't, and then I try it and it works. Maybe I shouldn't admit that, but it's happened.
It is amazing how often that kind of thing works, though. It just like every time it just sort of really takes me by surprise that it's like you spend ages and ages and ages trying to figure something out, and then you just go, right, sod it, turn it off at the switch, and it seems to come back to life. But to be fair, that's not the only stuff that Datasense does. There's kind of like 4 areas to the business. I know because we've been working with you for a little while now, but the stuff that you tend to talk around also dips into sort of the cybersecurity, sort of like your GDPR stuff, that kind of thing as well. So are you seeing sort of more sort of people being more careful around that kind of stuff at the minute, or are people still really blasé?
No, people are still really blasé. You're right. I do talk about the cybersecurity because switching stuff off and on again isn't a sexy conversation. So the stuff I do talk about is the cybersecurity. So my phone's ringing. It's probably someone telling me I'm on a live lunch.
I can see you on Facebook.
Yeah, Robin, if you are watching, I'll call you back after this. This is far more important. Yeah, people just aren't taking security as seriously as they should do. They are still really blasé with the information they put out on Facebook. I did a presentation a couple of months back now where I had just gone through, with the friends permission, their Facebook page, pulled out, I think it's about 4 posts, and from that I was able to ascertain the street they lived on and the house number, which then you bring up a Google Street View of the house and you can see if they've got a home burglar alarm or not. So within a year, probably a year or so, depending on how up to date the photo is. So yeah, security both electronically and physically is just non-existent for so many people. I know at least one member of the Green Umbrella team has admitted that he uses the same password for everything. And obviously, me saying he is probably
Sorry, down. Cheers, Chris.
Yeah, no.
Just outing you on a Facebook Live.
Unintentionally as well. That's the worst thing. And knowing,
or was it all a blag though?
I tell you, let me just go and find out for you. 1 second. Do you recognise this account number?
Unknown login to Facebook from Eastern Northampton.
Worryingly, that's not me because I'm actually for a change in the work office, so I'm in the centre of town.
Right, better change my password.
You have, because naming it after your guitar is just sad.
God damn.
Also, calling your guitar Leslie's a bit of a weird one, but you know, it's their own.
Got a couple of Leslies.
The thing is, we laugh, but it's a really serious point. It's a really serious point. Like, passwords are it just amazes me. Like, even now, where we get passwords that are like capital P A 88 WORD, and it's like, you know, it's your password is still password.
And I think with that, you've just mentioned how you structure your passwords.
No, that's literally in the last 3 or 4 months, we've needed to access something for a client, and passwords have been shared with us, and that was one of the passwords.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
It's just kind of 8-9 years ago, receiving information like that, you kind of like, come on guys, we can do better. And you know, there was kind of, you felt like there was an education piece happening then, but when it still crops up now, it's kind of it's a little bit scary because there's so many simple things you can do to strengthen a password, and that's you know what.
I mean, most browsers nowadays, when you sign up to things, will suggest a strong password. Then it will promptly store it in the browser, which is generally really easy to recover. But yeah, there's so many easy ways to make a secure password and retain it somewhere. And we were chatting earlier about password managers. And they're a far better way than storing it in the browser. And I'll be honest, I'm guilty of using the browser one as well, because it links nicely with the phone, the PC at home, and everything else. But yeah, password management and making sure you've got the right password are key things that people do forget about.
Yeah. Amanda, you use tools, don't you? Yeah.
I'm a big fan of using a password manager. So I use something called LastPass, so LAST Pass, which is a Chrome plugin, and it's an app on your phone. So yeah, so I can use either. Although I've kind of going off them a little bit because it was a free tool. There's paid options as well, but I was using the free version because that was more than enough for me. But it seems like they're going to start to charge now. It's only free if you just use it on a piece, just on a computer or just on your phone. So yeah, I am looking for recommendations of an alternative if anyone's got one. But I mean, the convenience, because as you say, you don't have to remember secure passwords. So it will create ones for you that are, you know, got symbols, capitals, uppercase, lowercase, everything. But yeah, I don't have to remember them, so it's just so much easier. But yeah, any recommendations of what people should be using?
Well, I've just swapped over to one called Bitwarden, Bitwarden, Bitwarden. But the reason for the LastPass change is the company that owns them logged me in. They're notorious for doing this. They'll buy up a company, and then over probably the first year or two, start to strip out all the freebie stuff. They were something I used to use for remote access with a lot of my support clients. Started out on the free platform because it was 10 devices in the early days of the business, and then that quickly disappeared, and the bills just started to double every year for no valid reason. So they're just doing the LastPass. So Bitwarden is free. It's cross-platform as well. So I've got it on my Android phone. I've got it on the PC that I'm talking to you now, and on the PC at home. And I'm sure for the Apple users, there probably is an Apple app for it as well.
Christina's muted.
Don't tell her.
Sorry. Did you hear that? Christina's muted. I was just going to say you can use Bitwarden on iOS. It's so yeah. With your little Apple digs, Mr. Lambert.
It's not my fault if Apple's the less popular product.
Oh, don't get into a debate about this with Mark.
Oh, Apple versus Android, yeah.
I've been having this debate with Mark since I've known Mark. It's been now 8, 9 years, 10 years.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever agree on that one.
We won't, and he's yet to win the debate. But
I'm just looking at my beautiful MacBook Air now.
I do think with things like password managers, it is a nice, secure way of storing everything. As I said, you don't have to remember it. But obviously, the work that we do have to ask for people's passwords and login information. So having multi-factor authentication. So basically, when someone logs in and the computer kind of goes, this is a bit weird, and sends you a text message or sends an email with a 4-digit code, is that, I mean, it feels a bit inconvenient sometimes, but is that as secure as it feels?
It is much more secure. I mean, there is always ways around it, and I can give you a really good example of that, which I will do shortly. It is up in that security so that you know someone's trying to access your account. I've got it with my Facebook and various other things I use, so that a code or an email gets sent to me with, a text or whatever. And yes, it's that extra level of security. Of course, if someone's got access to your phone, access to your emails, then it's rather irrelevant because they're already in elsewhere and can get that code sent through. So it's not 100%. Nothing in the IT security world is 100%. Even if you were completely disconnected from the internet, it wouldn't make it 100% safe. But a really good example of that is WhatsApp. A lot of people very recently have been getting messages from friends saying, I've been locked out of my WhatsApp account. You should receive a 4-digit code. Could you send me it? And that actual 4-digit code is the code to your WhatsApp. And you're basically giving the people who've already hacked your friend's account access to your WhatsApp. And then you lose control of it. To the point I've seen someone who's had to actually, in order to get back into WhatsApp, ended up changing their phone number to get back onto WhatsApp. Yeah, it was quite a difficult one to get around. It just ultimately they didn't actually come to me. It came as someone asked a question of me. But yeah, it was just easier for them to get a new phone and start afresh. And again, WhatsApp, people may actually not realise, does have a 2-factor authentication. Certainly for the app on the phone, so you'll just randomly open it, it'll pop up for asking for a 6-digit code.
Yeah, I have that on my phone for security.
Yeah. Obviously, the scary thing there is most people will probably pick their birthday because it's a 6-digit number.
Yeah.
I don't.
Amanda's
if anyone
now
wants to hack mine, it's not my birthday. Guess again.
Yeah, we now know what it isn't, so that's one thing we don't have to try.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. It's like a test for me is that, if I've got a good password, it means that my husband and my kids wouldn't be able to guess it either.
Yeah, but hang on, we met Kevin. Kevin couldn't guess it anyway. Even if it's a weak password. Like you're ready, Kevin. In fact, Kevin's just posted.
He's just popped up on there now. Okay, so he's actually asked a question as well. Should we let him have a moment? Let's bring him up on screen, shall we? Because he always whinges at me that I don't involve him in my work life. So here you go. Is iOS actually more secure than Windows, or is it a myth?
That's it used to be actually true. If you go back probably 10, 15 years, that was very true. Nowadays, it's actually the reverse. OS X or Mac OS doesn't actually provide any kind of inbuilt security software like Windows does with Windows Defender. And most Mac users still think that it is more secure, so they consequently don't actually have any security software on their Mac. But I've done plenty of virus and malware removals from Macs recently because people think that.
1 point to Chris on the debate, Mark. Shall I take a score?
Do you think that, I mean, over the last few years, so I guess the last 2 or 3 years, the whole kind of cybersecurity thing it's been really major. The types of hacks that go on, the scams that exist, the types of scams that are out there. It's already been really, really pushing forward, and it's become more and more prominent. But sort of over the last 12 months, where everyone's had this shift, it might be in the office, the way everything's networked, and clearly I don't know what I'm talking about right now, but you kind of within that environment, you've got your securities in place. Then all of a sudden, everyone's at home. So have people been wise in the way that they've made that shift, or is it just opened us all up for just sort of more and more issues from a cyber safety perspective?
I would probably say in terms of big business, corporates, they've maintained the security levels. It's the smaller, medium-sized businesses that have really just rushed into it because, start of last year, we was all conscious of what COVID was around, but we didn't expect to suddenly overnight have to be working from home. So people were just literally grabbing laptops and jumping onto the home Wi-Fi. And with that, you've got other devices on your home Wi-Fi. You're probably just connecting straight into a system without a VPN. So it's actually become a lot less secure for the way some businesses are working. But it's certainly within the small to medium-sized business market that's seen that shift.
So what do you recommend people to do to kind of what are the basic things that people can do to kind of get around that, or make sure that they're working in a better way?
Well, the first thing anyone can do is go to this website, which is www.datasense.ltd. There's a phone number at the top. Phone that, have a good chat with myself or one of my colleagues. After that, if you want some practical things you can do at home, just make sure your device has got security software on there, and especially if it's a business device, it shouldn't have any free antivirus on there anyway, because it's outside of the T's and C's for that organization. But make sure you've got security software on there, at least an antivirus, ideally with a firewall on there as well. What would be ideal, and it's a lot harder to do in a home environment, would be having separate broadband for your work equipment to your business equipment, or certainly a separate Wi-Fi network, one that's isolated away from the kids' devices, or the husband's, wife's devices as well. It's just minimizing the contact. And then if you're out and about, if you are kind of working from, say, a coffee shop or something like that, then using either the hotspot on your phone or making sure you are connecting out through a VPN, just so your traffic on that network's not as visible as it would be.
Cool. Thinking about the home network stuff, is it easy to sort of create that second network? Or is that something you need to go back to your provider and it's additional costs and stuff like that?
To create a second network, it really comes down to the type of router you're using. If you're using just the bog standard one from the internet provider, then no, you probably don't have that option. If you've gone out and bought a good router, and I'm talking kind of £80 plus, some kind of Netgear, something along those lines, then yes, you'll have the option to create a guest network, and you'll have your kind of traditional home network. And what I would say is bump the house stuff onto the guest network with a completely separate name and password to the regular one, and then just use your home one with the bits you need.
Cool. Okay, I've got one more. I feel like I'm getting a bit technical and boring.
No, I think
but it's like I want to know this stuff. So, okay, everyone, if people listening, if you've listened to this most weeks, probably once or twice I might have mentioned Alexa and the fact that I hate that damn thing. I don't talk to the little box on the side, okay? But it's like, right now, I think as households, that we've got all these smart devices, and then if I look at sort of the setup that we've got at home, because my husband's really into that, so it's like you're like, honestly, it's like every room in the house now there's something that connects to Alexa in one way or another, and if you go and get in his car, you still can't get away from the damn thing. It's like it's even in his car. So I'm just like I just want to turn a light switch on and off. It's like it should be that simple, but you got to remember 20 different names for things and all that kind of stuff, and it's just like But the point of the story is that as we're kind of attaching all these additional devices, and then it is kind of getting to a point where it is outside of our homes as well. Like, what are the things people don't think about in that situation?
Things people don't think about is where they're actually buying the product from. If you jump onto eBay, Amazon, and search a smart light bulb, for instance, or home security system, you can find thousands, tens of thousands of options. 90% will probably come from China. And we've seen instances where people have bought home security systems, so it's CCTV systems, from just some random person on eBay or Amazon. It's come over from a factory in China, and they've actually used that to get into the network it's been attached to. So it's got its open access out to the internet. They're using that as the gateway in, and then having access across the whole network. And from there, you can even be using it as a botnet to then do denial of service attacks out to other websites. So it's be very conscious where you're buying from. Don't go for the cheap Chinese stuff. Do spend a little more and get named products would be the first thing. In terms of those Alexas and the Google Homes, I know Apple would eventually get around to doing their home device. I know it's been talked about for a little while.
It's been out for years, Chris. Although, to be fair,
I think that's one all.
I've got a Google Home and an Alexa, and I haven't actually got an Apple one, believe it or not.
I don't even. Yeah, that's how bad their marketing is on that. Because I was even on the Apple website for a client the other day, and I've not even seen it advertised.
No, there is a couple.
But why do you need to have two? Don't they do the same thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
So what's the point? I don't get it.
To be honest, I got the Google one free because they give those sort of things away free now, don't they? Sort of, you can just get them because it's Google and Android and stuff. So,
okay.
Yeah.
2-1 to us, Emily.
Oh, I don't think it is, because you can pretty much get the Alexa stuff for free as well.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like I'm the only one that doesn't have a what do you call it? What would you call them? Listening devices?
Smart speaker.
Smart speaker.
Yeah.
Smart assistant. It's no different to having Siri on your phone or Google Home.
I was going to say I don't use Siri, but she exists on my phone, I guess, assuming she's a she. She might be gender neutral. Who knows? They. So yes, I don't. But I don't have any. I feel a bit like maybe I've missed the party for these, talking devices. But there's always people that they're always listening. Sorry, Mark.
Perfect for parties. Create a playlist. Off you go. See?
They've you might correct me on this, Chris, but I believe they've been used in sort of court cases and things before, where they've been recording sort of a conversation or something without the people being aware that it's happening, and then they've obviously been able to listen back to the recording through the smart speaker. But yeah, we don't have one. My parents have one, and I mean it's okay. Like, they play music through it and stuff, but I'm sort of with Christina in that I don't really see the hype. I think everything sort of works as it is. You don't need to shout, Alexa, shut the curtains, and then I'll just go and shut the curtains. I already do 2 little steps already, so I need to do more.
Do you know, it's like if we lived in a mansion and it was going to take 5 minutes to get from here to the light switch, I would understand the convenience. But it's like, literally, it's kind of, why do I need to shout at a little box at the side where...
It doesn't listen to you anyway.
Yeah, essentially, Isabella's probably sitting next to the light switch. I can just shout at her and do it, and it's, It's the same ends, right?
Well, it is. It's ideal for those of us who don't have children that we can send off to do stuff.
This is true. This is true. But yeah, okay. So thinking about smart devices and all of that kind of stuff, and there have been stories of people like being like they've got a smart fridge or something like that, and they've actually been hacked through the fridge. It's like, does that stuff really happen?
Yeah.
Do people really get hacked through devices like that?
Yeah, it's an unsecured device on your home network. So in terms of the actual smart assistants, they are a little more secure than that. There is some security built into them. It doesn't stop people. I mean, you're aware of this, Christina. I'm sure Paul Green won't mind me telling the story. We do a Friday night, as many of you probably know, a Friday night pub session virtually. And Paul has a Google Home assistant, and we managed to set his alarm for 3 a.m. I say we, it was Kevin, actually. He set it for 3 a.m. So the next thing we know is Kevin's getting a text later, I think actually about 3 a.m., just calling him, if you excuse the language on green umbrellas, it's not an indicative sign of a green umbrella. But basically, you're a bit of a bastard, aren't you?
That is quite a funny prank. I'll give it. That's a good one. If I had the skills and the knowledge, Mark, you definitely get a 1 a.m. alarm.
Cheers.
Christina, 3 probably. Amanda, I'll give you 5 because you're my favourite.
Thank you.
Everyone's got to be someone's favourite, I suppose. But yeah, like I said, I just think it's amazing. So Paul is actually in the audience at the minute, and he's just said it. Yeah, it wasn't funny at the time. Whereas now Kevin, I'm going to bring this comment on screen. Don't let it go to your head. But Kevin's also said it's happiest day of his life.
I'm with Kevin. Sorry, Paul.
Okie dokie. Right. So the other thing I wanted to sort of touch on as well. So obviously social media is our thing. And, you know, we talk to people about creating engaging content and, you know, content that encourages people to comment, especially on Facebook. And there are a lot of posts out there that kind of go viral where it's, I couldn't think of an example when we were talking about it earlier. And I immediately went to like, what's your porn name, which probably says something about me. But since then, I've thought of a better example. So it's things like, you know, at Christmas, it's like, what's your elf name? And it's like, you know, the street you lived in when you were a child and your pet's name and stuff like that. And I think that type of content is really innocent. Really innocent.
Not really.
Well, this is the thing. People give away information. They give it away freely, and they don't think. They don't think it through. They don't realise what they're putting out there. So I thought it was, because I know you've got some sort of feelings on this type of stuff anyway, but I thought that would be an interesting talking point for us.
Yeah, so in terms of I know the elf name one and all the others, it's normally around the day of the month you was born in, and I'll give you a small selection because it makes it a bit easier for them. So it'll be like first or second, third or fourth, and so on, and then it'll be the surname becomes the month you was born in. So what you've done there is effectively given away your date of birth or part of it, not necessarily the year, just on the back of finding out what some silly elf name is. So yeah, and then you get all these things of
sparking my fingers has compromised me.
I was such a giggly mood today. I don't know why.
It's because you're nervous about all your cybersecurity faux pas.
No, I'm not.
I think we're probably a bit more in the know and don't share things like that and comment on it because of the nature of the work we do. But I think one of the worries is people often worry about their children on social media. I know my parents won't be watching this, but I worry about my parents and some of their generation because they seem to share a lot and get involved in these things. Probably because they're not kind of, I don't know what you would call digital natives, but yeah, they often seem to get involved in these things like this, or the sort of viral things where you share a candle or comment if you've lost someone to X, and you just think, oh, please don't get sucked into that. It's a real worry.
Well, it is. It's where these hashtags come in. Hashtags are a great way of tracing people who shared key information, especially when you get into the whole chain, the chain posts where you share it and then you get other people to share it, and they do it. It's always the same hashtag, and you just go and search that on Facebook, Twitter, and you'll find out all about people from just that.
Yeah, I think there's a massive amount on social there's a massive amount that is for good, and used the right way can really sort of bring massive benefits to us as individuals, to us as brands and businesses. But there is this dark side where, and it's like with anything else, there's always that that the level of abuse that comes, and I think we have a responsibility to educate people of those kind of like those grey areas, if you like, and how to look out for them, how to avoid them, that kind of stuff. And I think the generational thing is actually a really good topic that we've not thought about, because even if you think about there's the stuff we're talking about now with the cybersecurity, but there's also stuff like the fake news, okay, and if we look at if we go all the way back to Cambridge Analytica, someone sees a post in their Facebook feed and it's got a sensationalized heading on it, and people don't click through and read it. They just hit like, they start commenting, they share it, and that goes out further and further and further, and before we know, it's taken hold. But the information that's being gathered along the way there is where it really comes back to this kind of this thing that puts us at risk. Because even if I'm being all nice and squeaky clean, if I then rock up at my parents and they've, my dad's been, clicking around on stuff, maybe unwittingly managed to pick up a virus or whatever it is because of that, I've connected to their, I was sounding so intelligent up until that point.
I've connected to that internet. Their Wi-Fi.
Their Wi-Fi.
That internet thing.
But yeah, it could be that simple though. It could be, I'm really, really conscious when I go to, but back in the old days when I used to be dipping in and out of service stations on my travels, I was really conscious that I was all, I used my data. I didn't connect to all the freebies and the rest of it. But actually, every Sunday I'd rock up at my parents' having no idea what they've been doing on the internet over the last 7 days.
Yeah, you get something on there.
I'm just going to leave that there for a minute and just let everyone consider that one. Yes, I heard it too.
Everyone's now probably thinking about what their family get up to on the internet when they go and visit.
Yeah, it's a scary thought. But no, it's true. You get a bit of software on a machine that's watching the data going across the network, and suddenly passwords are transmitted, not necessarily encrypted. And yeah, you've unwittingly, because of someone else's mistake, given away key information about you. And it is the reason why, as I said earlier, with coffee shops, always use your hotspot or make sure you are on a VPN. So you're not just sat there on the open network. I mean, I've got some software that I use quite legitimately. I download it from a website in all of 30 seconds if I don't have it on me already. And that's what it does. It listens and shows me devices on the network. And then I can from there go forward. There's a local sports club that I go to once or twice a week for networking. And their network there is wide open to the point I can actually even see their till system. And they've actually had apparently someone in who knows what they're doing set it up, but I can see the tills, and with a bit of software just off the phone, if I wanted to spend the time to do it, I could then get onto the till system, get to the bar, put in a big order, and as quick as they're putting the drinks on, be knocking them off. So my £1,000 bar order, because I'm out drinking with Mark, is suddenly just a couple of quid.
Sounds like a plan.
I was going to say that, but I thought, no, Emily.
Do you know what's
Sorry.
Do you know what's
Neither needs a filter
craziest?
today.
Do you know what's craziest about all this stuff? You kind of, I think if you're not in this world, you visualize this kind of hacker, you know, that's kind of, you know, hanging out on the dark web and doing all this stuff, and like they're, you know, they're really like really techie. And actually, some of it's not that hard to hack. Like some of it is, obviously there's stuff like that. You've got to have the knowledge, the know-how, the software, etc., etc. But we've had clients before now where they've lost access to a Google account, maybe. And I've literally spent 2 or 3 days, and from talking to them, getting some information from them, just listening to them, I said, right, I'm gonna try a few passwords, and I've been able to get into those accounts. Now, obviously, they're part of them instructing us is for us to get in. You know, we need to do that work. They want us to get into that account. I don't suddenly start randomly trying to hack people's accounts. But it's like, actually, I don't have any of that software. I'm not techie in that way. I've just got, you know, Google and a bit of common sense. And I think it is actually quite scary just how easy it is to be able to get into things. But yeah.
Quite often people don't realise the amount of information that they are putting out there. I know, slightly off topic, but my friend who is part of the police, as part of her interview induction process, what they do is the police look only on social media and the information that's readily available to the public and gather tons of information on one person in the audience and sort of reel off some of this information and then shock the audience as to how much information they've been able to gather purely off social media and the information that that person has put out there themselves, or someone else has put that information out there about them. And yeah, I think I mean, we all know I'm not the most secure, but I think it's something that sometimes even I don't think about the stuff that I'm putting out there and things like that. You just put something out there innocently that you don't think about how it could come back to you in that way, or just little things really. I can't think off the top of my head, but it is scary how people don't know how easy it is to get that information. Like you said, Christina, you don't have to be a techie person in order to be able to find that. And obviously with this induction process, the people the police that were doing that just proved how easy it was.
Chris, there's a fantastic video. I think we've talked about it previously, where it's the girl in the coffee shop.
Yeah,
oh, the she's on serving. Yeah. That
you
is,
share the link to it. It's
I probably have it. Again, one of my favorite links. I have used that video several times off YouTube. It's done by Action Frauders, I guess. Very cool. And it was a real life, real demonstration of how easy it is to get people's data. If someone wants to grab the link, or I can look for it. But it's a great example of social engineering, where they just logged on to the person's Facebook. In fact, they probably would have started out either going straight to Facebook or just Googling the person's name and probably where they were in the country. So if you're in a coffee shop in the middle of Northampton, chances are if someone's got a local accent, then they're from that town. And if they haven't, you might recognize the accent and narrow it down a bit more. But they go from there and then suddenly go into the whole past of that individual. I'm just trying to see if I can find it for the.
I think I found it, Chris. If you want to.
Yeah, go on. If you want to share it, then. Yeah, it was done by Action Fraud 4 years ago.
Cool. So the basic people go into the coffee shop. They're asked for their name. Whilst the coffee's being made.
No, there's actually
take us through it.
There's one step before that which you may not have picked up on. As I recall, it's either a sign in the window or someone's giving out flyers saying, if you like our Facebook page, you'll get a free coffee. Well, most people, if they hear the word free, will jump on it and action it. So people go on there, they like it, so instantly they've got the person's full name without even being asked who that person is. They can also see a photo of it to compare it to the person as they come in. So, you know, it's not like they've had Amanda and Emily like it at the same time and not sure who's who. And from there, you've got a team of people, I think 2 or 3 in a van nearby, that are then searching Facebook, going onto Google, LinkedIn, and getting lots of personal information about people. And in the time it takes to make a cup of coffee in a coffee shop, so literally 30 seconds, they've got all that information. It's been scribbled down on the cup and given to the customer. And it really is that simple.
But people are picking up these cups of coffee and they're like reading all this stuff about themselves. They're like, how the hell do you know this? And it's like, this is information you're putting out there freely into the world.
I was in fact one of the guys, he actually volunteers extra information that wasn't on there. He, as I recall it, he says, I'm also a Christian, which wasn't something they had, and he just openly volunteered it.
Yeah. Probably the craziest, I'm going to do that thing and spoil the end, but the craziest thing about the video is that there's one, I think it's one particular girl, and she's like in absolute shock at this information, drinks a cup of coffee. They kind of follow her down the street as she finishes her cup of coffee. What does she do with the coffee cup that's got all that information in?
Put it in the bin.
Puts it in the bin, walks off. And it's like, actually, that's kind of the attitude people have to their personal information. We're just so, I think just as a society, we're so blasé about it. And we hear about these hacks and things like that. And, you know, we were talking about it earlier. This week, the Facebook was hacked a little while ago. This week, that data's now been available for sale. And so it's hit the news. And it's like, how many people have actually gone to see if their information is part of that data set?
Probably very few. There is a great website, many people probably know it, called Have I Been Pwned? And I can not stress enough how careful you are in Googling that one, because you will end up with a rather random search.
An interesting search history.
Yes. I've come across it on Paul Green's search history a few times. Sorry, not this website, it's the other stuff. I did tell you, Paul. I wasn't going to let you get away. I am going to pop the link into the Facebook chat. But there, you can go to that website, pop in your email address, and you'll get one of 2 results, which is a green result, so that email address hasn't been found in any data hacks to the last update of that database, or you'll get a red result, and then scroll down past the bit of saying you should pay for this service. You find all the bits where you've been included in the hack.
Yeah.
And then,
but if that does happen, then Chris, what should you do? So if your email has been included?
To be honest, you should change the password. Chances are it's actually too late anyway. As the Facebook hack recently, it was actually happened. The hack happened in 2019, so we're now kind of a year and a half down the line, and now the data's actually come to public knowledge. It's now hit the headlines. So if you're any one of us included on that, for the best part of a year and a half, they've had our password. And like most people, as we touched on someone in this group earlier, didn't we, Mark? They use one password for everything. So if you was into Mark's Facebook account, you was probably then into his Amazon account, into his eBay account, and everything else.
I think this is the other thing as well. It's like if you suspect you've been hacked in some way, and this is very much from a social perspective. If you're looking at Facebook thinking you've been hacked, quite often that it's not about changing your password on Facebook, although yes, you need to do that too. Quite often it's actually your email address. So, and again, luckily it is few and far between when it happens, but I remember a few years ago, we got someone who their Facebook account had been hacked. They changed the password, but they then couldn't get the, like you get an email to
reset.
To reset, authenticate, whatever it is, whatever the word is. They couldn't get that email because it was actually their email account that had been hacked. And because that had been taken control of, they actually needed to go through things to change the password on that to be able to gain access, to then change passwords everywhere else. So it is, anytime you think that you've, fallen foul of this stuff, it is kind of, you need to go back to your email and change things there first. And then that allows you to have just a greater level of control, I would say, in terms of implementing everything else. But I don't know, Chris, you might have different advice on that.
No, starting with the email address would be the first point of call, because like I say, if the reset's going to come through to that and you've, even without realizing, not got access to that account anymore, you're kind of scuppered. But not having the same password for any other website. So if you've got Facebook, eBay, Amazon, each one needs to have a different password, and that's not kind of like password 1, password 2, password 3. Because if you've been involved in a couple of hacks, what we'll see is a pattern. So if we've got 2 sites out of 3 and your password's password 1 and password 3, then the next logical things to try are password 2, password 4, and just follow that chain up. So you want something wildly different for each website, which again is where password managers, going back to what Amanda was saying earlier, comes in handy. And especially if they do suggest a strong password for you as well, you'll never get that kind of sequential password.
Yeah. I don't want to get into GDPR stuff because that sends everyone to sleep. Basically, it's really, really important. And it's on a scale of 1 to 10, GDPR is like a 10 out of 10 in terms of importance, but it's also about a 10 out of 10 in terms of being the opposite of riveting. But I think that, and I say this partly because John's put a comment in there as well. It's the hackers are one issue, but it's actually the companies that have your data, what they're going to do with it next. That's the bit that's kind of worse. So I think there is an argument as well for making sure that anytime you're handing over data, that you're really, really clear on what's going to happen with that data as a consumer. But as a business, you have massive responsibility when you're gathering someone's data in terms of sort of really stating how you're going to use it, and complying with what you set out. So I know that's something you kind of, that I know it's not your area of the business per se, but that again is something that you guys at Datasense look at as well, privacy policies, that sort of stuff. Where are people missing the mark, do you think? Or, what are the questions that come through again and again?
Well, probably the biggest place where people are missing the mark, and I think John's made a really valid point there, on a platform that's got all of his data that then sells it on so they can market to him, is how many of us have actually read the Facebook T's and C's? Quick show of hands.
No one, because have you seen how many pages are in that document?
Of course I haven't. I've not looked at it either. it could literally be like 2 paragraphs saying we'll never sell your data. For all I know, I've never sat there to read it, because no one ever does read the T's and C's. But yes, social media platforms. I did a great presentation at BuzzCon yesterday morning. I'm doing it again next Wednesday in Daventry's group, on how we are the product of people like Facebook, Twitter. They don't provide anything for free. They make the money on the back of what we tell them. And we quite happily give away a lot of free information to them. But where do companies fall down is not having the right policies in place, so that when they are gathering information and holding it for people, is that they're making sure they're covered. In the GDPR fine is, as I recall, and you're right, it's not my key area. That's why we've got Gail to do all the lovely paperwork. I think it's 4% of your global turnover, which for a big company is in the millions. I mean, that's turnover and not profit. So if you don't make a profit but you get a fine, your turnover's £3 million. 4% of that is taken straight off the bottom line as well.
Yeah, and there's some really basic things that as business owners we need to do in terms of that data. So, one thing is registering with the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office, which costs, it's like 40 quid for a year or 40 quid for 2 years. It's like it's next to nothing, but it's actually it's like an official stamp, if you like, to have that in place. And then to have your privacy policy there that is essentially, yes, we've got your data. This is how we're using it. This is how we're storing it. we're not sharing it, or if you are sharing it, this is how it's shared. You know, and it's kind of like they're just basic things that every business needs to do. But I think that I'm really passionate about the fact that you can't just download some guidelines. Like you can't just download a template and fill it out, because how every business, how you deal with data is so unique. You know, I don't hold people's payment details. I use a system that holds people's payment details. I never see them. We don't hold, obviously we've got like passports and driving license and stuff like that for, like, you know, Mark and Emily and Jane and me. But you know, outside of that, we don't need to hold any personal ID for anyone. We don't need to have, you know, we work with a lot of recruiters. We're not holding people's bank details, dates of birth, national insurance numbers, that kind of stuff. So actually our requirements under that privacy policy and that GDPR policy are very, very different. And I think a lot of business owners just go, okay, well, Rocket Lawyer, template, download, whack it up on the website or wherever it's going to be, and they just, you know, tick the box and it's done. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Or do you think I'm being too...
No, you've probably hit the nail on the head there. You really have hit the nail on the head. And as an example, with the move from Blue Sky into Datasense, I had to contact all my customers. They've all had an email from me saying what was going on and that I was going to be migrating data from Blue Sky to Datasense. Behind that, I've got the policy for data sharing between Blue Sky and Datasense. So that was all done before I even sent the email. Then the email goes out, and then I have to wait. I think I waited 2 weeks. Those who didn't want to migrate across for whatever reason, or where I'd had a bounce back to say it wasn't deliverable. So maybe the company's closed, the person's left. I've then had to filter out those people from the data transfer, and then finally, at the end of last month, moved everything across. So people do, they just go out and get, you can go and download a GDPR template, absolutely. And people just chuck the name on it, fill in a few blanks and think that does it. And then, unfortunately, when the ICO comes knocking at the door, they suddenly find the policy's not worth the time it took to download it, because it doesn't at all address the way the business works. I do see that where people will go that route. I hate to say it, but actually the worst ones tend to be solicitors, because they know, whilst they know the law, they tend to have draft templates that will fit most of the jobs they do, but they don't always customize it to meet their own personal requirements.
I think that's the key. Sometimes we see with like website policies, people think about perhaps the website side of things, but they're not actually thinking the bigger picture of where that data is then, like Christine said, being used elsewhere in the business. It's just, it can be very insular, and it's trying to get that through to people that actually know your privacy policy should be, you know, a GDPR policy for the whole business, not just website related.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't remember, is it government website or someone that was going to I think it's a company that's going to contract to do the ferries. Their website policy was taken from a pizza delivery place. Literally cut and paste. They didn't even bother changing the name.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you know, I've seen stuff like that. One of the things we do is a digital health check, and we kind of look at a company's online presence. Part of that, we look at, you know, have they got a privacy policy? Are cookies covered within that? Have they got the, you know, the registered number of the company on their website? That kind of stuff. And it's like the amount of times it's someone that has to hold a lot of data because of their operations, and they have got privacy policy, but it's like 2 paragraphs. And You're just like, where did you get it from, and who in the business thought that was going to be enough?
The trouble is, it's normally the office juniors being bumped with the task to get it, and they'll literally go into a website, copy off the bit that seems relevant to what they've been told to do, and then suddenly that's on a website for all to see.
Amanda, were you going to say something then as well?
No, I was just kind of shaking my head, and it's often an afterthought. No one really wants to take responsibility for it, and then as soon as the ICO or somebody comes knocking at the door going, excuse me, what are you doing with my data? Everyone's like, oh, that was your responsibility. No, it was yours. And yeah, you can't do it. You need to have systems in place, even if you're a small business. You do.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, you know, I don't know how much it is these days to get that policy written specifically for your business, but it's the cost is far less than the cost of, you know, if you were to get caught out. But yeah. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there because we're coming up to the hour. I'm very pleased that I've managed to get through an episode without saying anything too embarrassing myself. I feel very grown up today. And we've talked about serious subjects, which is, you know, I think we've held our own with Chris. So
well.
thanks for raising the level there, Chris, dragging us up out of the gutter. Appreciate that.
Well, having seen some of your previous people on here, Paul Green being one of them, it wasn't a difficult thing to bring it up from Paul's level. And yes, Paul, to answer your question, yes, I do know you're here.
We should explain. So Paul Green, if you've been tuning in, he's been a guest a couple of times for us, and he is very loyal follower of the Live Lunch. But he runs a networking group in our area, which Chris is a long-term advocate of, I would say, a long-term attendee. And so there is always a little bit of banter and that kind of stuff. So that just explains the link there. But Chris,
I like the way you said follower instead of stalker, which is generally how Paul describes himself.
But obviously, so Chris, people can go to a business community event, and you said you're speaking at one tomorrow. But how else can people get hold of you?
Facebook, LinkedIn. I've obviously got you guys managing my LinkedIn profile. You can find me on the Datasense Facebook page, the LinkedIn page, LinkedIn directly for me. Message me. Website, datasense.ltd. The number's on there, which is the general number. And you can ask to be put through to me. Email, chris.lambert@datasense.ltd. Or if you're really struggling to find me, then rewatch the video or drop one of the lovely girls or Mark at Green Umbrella a message and they'll forward it on. Sorry, I've just turned into my PAs there.
Yeah.
I know. I was like, oh, wait a minute.
But don't send it to Emily because she doesn't read or send emails anyway.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I do.
Not when it's from us.
So Emily's emails are never going to get hacked. She never opens it.
That's not true.
Well, actually, that'd be a really good sign that when she has been hacked, is we just start getting replies.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, we'll know it's not. We'll know it's not her.
Yeah, watch out.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much. I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, and as I do that, we're all going to give a little wave so Emily can get her screenshot, and I've got to move in the right direction to get in shots because
thank you.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll end it there. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.